Hello, good evening. I hope you all are doing good. So, as you all are aware, we are completed with your third unit, internal control. Now, let's move on to your next unit, that is Unit 4, Audit Evidence. Okay, now let's begin with the introduction. Now, what is this audit evidence? Audit evidence, in simple words, it is nothing but the information. Okay, it is the information which is obtained by the auditor in arriving at the conclusions on which the audit opinion is based. Now we are conducting audit, so it is basically the information which is obtained by the auditor while conducting audit. He is taking this information to arrive at a conclusion, okay, on which the entire audit opinion is based. Okay, it basically comprises of source of documents and accounting records underlying the financial statements and corroborating information from other sources. Now, as you all can see in the slide, I've mentioned the meaning of audit evidence. It says audit evidence is the evidence obtained by auditors during a financial audit and recorded in the audit working papers. Now, auditors need audit evidence to see if a company has correct information considering their financial transactions, so as a CPA is nothing but certified public accountant, can confirm their financial statements. So these people have to confirm their financial statements. Next slide. Let's move on to the next slide. These are the assertions that are contained in the financial statement. Now, what is the meaning of assertion? Assertion is nothing but a confident and a forceful statement of fact or belief. Okay. These assertions can be explicit or implicit. Okay, they can relate to the recognition, measurement, presentation, and disclosure of the financial information which is contained in the financial statements. Okay, basically they can actually relate to whatever the recognition is regarding the measurements, the presentation of the audit evidence, and the disclosure of the financial information which is contained in the financial statements. The role of auditor here is basically to obtain evidence as to whether the management assertions can be supported. These are highly important to the investors since it is used to evaluate a company's stock with the help of figures from the financial statements. I hope it is all very clear and you do not require any explanation for this. Now, moving on to the next slide, you have the revision of the financial statement. Assertions were listed under three headings. Okay, so this revision of the financial statement assertion is wherein you are asserting something. Okay, so it is listed under this three headings, that is assertion about classes of transaction in event for period under audit. So here you have occurrence. Now, what is this occurrence? Occurrence is nothing but how many times the event has been occurred, okay, based on the transaction in a particular entity. Now, what is completeness? Completeness is basically all the records are actually very complete, or what all transactions and events that have been recorded, okay, they're all related. You are disclosing that particular events, and they're also you should make sure that these particular records are recorded in the financial statements. All of this information is available in the financial statements. Next, you have accuracy. Now, what is accuracy? Whether all the data is accurate, whether it is appropriate, whether these particular this particular events have actually occurred in the entity or not. Next, you have cutoff. Cutoff is nothing but transaction in events that have been recorded in the correct accounting period. Okay, in the correct accounting period. Suppose this is a particular accounting period. In this particular period, if there are events occurred, you need to record it in the correct accounting period. Classification is how you are classifying and keeping into different accounts. Suppose you have a P&L account, you have capital account, okay, you have various reserves and surplus accounts, so how you are classifying it. Next, you have presentation, how you are actually presenting it, okay, how the transactions and events are appropriately aggregated or disaggregated, and clearly described, and related disclosures are relevant and understandable in the context of requirements of the applicable financial reporting framework. Okay, how you are presenting this particular information. Now, next you have assertions about account balances and related disclosures at the period end. In the period end, you have existence. Okay, existence. What is the existence? Whether the particular assets and liabilities of the equity interests are existing or not. Whether whatever assets and liabilities are there, whether it is actually existing or not. Then next you have rights and obligations. Rights and obligations, whether to hold the assets, whether you have the right to hold the assets, and the liability of the entity to hold the and the liability and the obligations of the entity. Okay, next you have completeness. Completeness again is whether everything has been properly recorded in the financial statements. Next, you have accuracy, valuation and allocation. How accurate is the information? How have you valued it? Whether it has actually been valued on a proper, so you have something known as a depreciation and everything, right? Based on all of that, what is the value of the assets and liabilities which are available and how you are allocating it. Next, classification, how you are classifying and recording in the proper accounts. Presentation is how you are presenting, how effectively you are presenting. It is about that. Okay. So next you have integration of presentation and disclosure assertions. Integration of presentation and disclosure of assertions again is talking about occurrence in rights and obligations. Occurrence is basically occurrence under, it is basically absorbed in the occurrence assertion under transaction. The reference to rights and obligations is retained in the account balance assertions. Okay, this will be basically recorded in the account balance assertions. Whatever the balance is there, it will be recorded there. It will be completely absorbed there. Again, completeness based on how your disclosure of assertion is. Based on this, how effectively you are completely providing the information, okay, based on the account balances. Next, you have classification and understandability. How you are classifying, how you are making them understand a particular thing, okay, how you are presenting it, whether you are appropriately aggregating and disaggregating the account balances, etc. So all of this has to be mentioned in the classification and understandability. Next, you have accuracy and valuation. How accurate, again, the information is, how accurately it is absorbed. Okay, the transaction is absorbed, how accurately the information is asserted. Okay, and the account balance assertion has been extended to accuracy, valuation and allocation. How effective accuracy is, how you are evaluating it, and how you are again allocating it. Okay. Next, you have a transaction assertion and transaction assertions. Okay, here in this slide I've mentioned you to read for page 124 and 125 because again it is a repetition of the same points. It has occurrence, relevance, completeness, relevance test, accuracy, relevant test, cutoff, okay, classification, relevant test, presentation. It's again the repetition of everything. Then in account assertions also it is a repetition. You can take a look in your textbook about it. Next, you have audit procedures to obtain audit evidence. Now, what is this audit procedure? There is certain audit procedure, okay, to obtain the audit evidence also. You can't just obtain the audit evidence just like that. There is a procedure which you need to follow. The audit evidence is basically the information, right? Information whether you have obtained from audit procedures or sources, okay. Basically, if you want to obtain audit evidence, you have to follow a particular procedure. This procedure should be followed by the auditor to arrive at the conclusion, okay, on which the complete opinion of the auditor is based, okay. And this opinion will also have necessary supporting documents, okay. It could be internal documents, it could be external information, internal information, whichever is holding good for the thing. Now, it has an objective. The objective of the auditor is basically here to plan and perform the audit. Plan and perform the audit to obtain, okay, first one is basically he needs to plan and perform the audit. Second one is obtain appropriate audit evidence. He needs to obtain appropriate audit evidence, okay. Next, here he should have sufficient material to support the opinion expressed in the auditor's report, okay. He should have material to support his report. Now, sufficient appropriate audit evidence is nothing but you need to whatever information you are mentioning there, all of this has to be available to you, okay, so that you're not proved wrong anywhere and it is supporting your audit evidences. We're done with the objective. Here it is the quantity. Okay, the quantity of audit evidence needed is affected by the following. Okay, here it is affected by the following things. That is risk of material misstatement. Now, this audit evidence can be affected by the following things. That is risk of material misstatement, risk associated with the control and audit of internal control over financial reporting. Okay, and next you have quality of the audit evidence is obtained as quality of audit evidence increases. Okay. When the quality of audit evidence increases, the need for additional corroborating. Corroborating is nothing but it means you are giving strong support. Corroborating meaning is giving strong support. Now, next you have relevance and reliability. In your relevance and reliability, I've asked you to refer your textbook. That is page number 127. Okay, the textbook which I'm referring is Vision Book House. So in your relevance and reliability, again you have the same thing, how relevant the information is to be, and how you need to test the assertion or control directly, how you need to test for understatement or overstatement in case if there is occurrence of it, and the timing of the audit procedure that is used to test the assertion or control. Okay, all of this needs to be taken into consideration in terms of relevance. Now what about reliability? About reliability, the reliability of evidence here depends on the nature and source of the evidence. Okay, from where and which circumstances you are obtaining information from. For example, evidence which is obtained from a general knowledgeable source that is independent of the company, okay, is more reliable than the evidence which is obtained from the internal company sources. Okay, it's better to obtain from the independent of the company than to obtain from the sources of the company. That was an example. Okay. And also what you can do here is there is a reliability of information which is generated internally by the company and increased when company controls because see, I'll tell you why there is reliability of information, because the people are already working in the particular company. So when people are working in the company, there will be people who will not be for the benefit of the company, but still they will give you reliable information which you can completely depend on, rather than collecting information from the external sources. Okay. Let's move on to the next topic. You have audit procedures for obtaining audit. Now, audit procedure here is basically, it is your risk assessment procedures. It can be classified into the following categories. That is your risk assessment procedure. In your risk assessment procedure, you can see here, I've mentioned it point wise. So here you have risk assessment procedure, further audit procedure, which consists of test of control, substantive procedures including test of details, and substantive analytical procedures. Okay. In your risk assessment procedure, you have there is something known as inspection. Your first point is inspection. Inspection is nothing but you're inspecting your records, your documents. You're examining your records and documents, whether internal or external, whether it is in the paper form or electronic form or any other form which is available. Okay, you're inspecting everything. Observation. Next is observation. What are you observing? You're looking at the process of the procedure being performed by others. Example, here what is happening is how the company is actually working. Okay, and in case if there is a risk, okay, how effectively are you observing. Okay, example, the auditor's observation of inventory counting by company's personnel or the performance of controlling activities. Suppose, for example, I am in charge of the inventory. Now the auditor will observe me as to how effectively I am taking the inventory seriously and how I recording the inventory, whether I am recording it correctly or whether I am recording it falsely. He will observe it. Okay, next is the inquiry stage. Inquiry is nothing but you are inquiring, you are seeking information from a knowledgeable person. So suppose to conduct auditing, you need information, right? So you are conducting inquiry, you are taking information to carry out this particular auditing. Next is confirmation. Confirmation is now you have taken down information, right? But you need to confirm from a higher authority, seeking that whether whatever information you've got is actually right or wrong. So this is the confirmation. Next, you have recalculation. You need to recalculate everything. You need whatever information you have got. You need to see whether there is mathematical accuracy, whether the documents are actually accurate or not. Whether you also here you can calculate. Recalculation can be done either manually or it could be either done electronically. Next, you have reperformance. What is reperformance? Is basically it involves independent execution of procedures. Everyone will do independent execution of procedures or controls that were originally performed by the company personnel. Okay, independently it will be done, which was actually performed by the company personnel originally, which was performed by the company personnel. Okay, now next you have audit evidence through audit procedures. Audit evidence through audit procedure is nothing but it is based on understanding of internal control. Okay, the audit approach may be as follows. It could be applied test of controls only for a particular assertions, applied test of control for particular assertions, and applied substantive procedure only for a particular assertion, or it could either be a combined approach. So these three things you need to keep in mind as to what is required for the audit evidence and how the procedure goes about. Okay. Next, you have quality and quantity of audit evidence. Now, quality and quantity plays an important role because see, quantity is not very important, but the quality of information plays a very important role. Okay, quality is very important. Now, audit information evidence, as we all know, is the information which is used by the auditor to arrive at a conclusion. Now, this audit evidence is very cumulative in nature. Okay. It generally includes the records of the initial entries, okay, whatever the initial starting entries are, it generally includes these entries, and for this you will have supporting records. Now, your management is responsible for preparing the financial statements. Next, you have audit procedure for obtaining audit evidence. Audit procedure for obtaining audit evidence is basically obtain the understanding of the entity. So basically, the audit procedure, when you want to obtain the audit evidence, firstly you need to understand the environment. Okay, suppose you are an auditor, you have been appointed for a particular company. Now suddenly when you go, you just can't start carrying on the audit. You need to identify what kind of company it is, what is the nature, what is the size of the company, how big is it, how many employees are working, what is this company exactly into, okay, what are they dealing with, whether it is for example, this is a company which makes AC, or it makes a refrigerator or a mobile phones. What is it exactly making? You need to analyze and understand what the company is all about. Okay, next you need to test the operating effectiveness of control. You need to start off with your auditing procedure. You need to see how effectively it is operating, whether you can carry out auditing here, whether information you can get is actually accurate or not. All of this you need to test. Then next you have to detect material misstatement at assertion levels. Assertion, as I told you all the meaning, you can go back and refer to the previous slide. Now you need to detect whether there are any material misstatements. Suppose your company is into mobile phones. Okay, now whether they are getting raw materials or no, whether they're actually recording it correctly or not. So all of this needs to be detected. Okay, next you have problems which are associated with audit and review of accounting estimates. Audit and review of accounting estimates, what is happening here is basically you have accounting estimates. Okay, now in your accounting estimates here, what you have to basically know is there is approximation of monetary amount, right? There is money which is involved. Now here in the approximation of monetary amount, in the absence of precise measurement, okay, there will be a particular measurement, and here the monetary amount will be absent. Okay, the term applies for fair value and other estimates when there is an estimation uncertainty. Okay, basically accounting estimate is done when there is complete uncertainty. Okay, next it is auditor's point estimate. Auditor's point estimate or auditor's range. Okay, this is basically the amount or range which is obtained from audit evidence, which is used to evaluate relevant financial statement assertions in recorded amounts. Here amounts will be recorded. It is basically to understand the relevant financial statement assertions. Next you have estimation uncertainty. Estimation uncertainty is suspectability of an accounting estimate. You are suspecting an accounting estimate and related disclosure, which is likelihood of the misstatement. If there is a misstatement, you are estimating as to where the calculation is going wrong. You need to determine everything. Next you have management bias. Management bias is basically management's lack of unbiased objectivity in the preparation of the presentation. Okay, management should be biased, it should be fair, it should be transparent, it should not conduct any falsy activities, or it should not lead to any material misstatement. Next you have management's point estimate. Management's point estimate is basically how management's determination of amounts for recognition of disclosure as accounting estimates, how they are recognizing the accounting estimates and how they are disclosing the accounting estimates. Now let's move on to the next topic. You have nature of accounting estimates. In your nature of accounting estimates, it's basically here I've simplified this PowerPoint presentation for you because your textbook, it is very much elaborate and it is really confusing. So when you refer to the PowerPoint presentation slides, it is easy for you to understand and also easy for you to remember these points. Now, nature of accounting estimates is basically arising in entities that are engaged in business activities. Basically, this is arising in those companies which is engaged in business activities. Okay, here you will have routine transactions and also you will have fair value accounting estimates. Okay, there will be fair value accounting estimates. There will be no material misstatements and everything. It will be completely transparent. Information will be provided. Derived from data readily available. Okay, it is basically derived from the data which is actually readily available. Next, you have procedures for auditing estimates. Procedures for auditing estimates is nothing but here in the ISA 540 requires the auditor to do these following things. That is basically to evaluate the degree of uncertainty which is associated with an accounting estimate. Okay, that is the first one. You need to evaluate the degree of uncertainty which is actually associated with the accounting estimate. Consider if the estimates with a high degree of uncertainty give rise to significant risk. Okay, you need to see if the uncertainty is giving rise to a significant risk. Then review the outcome. You need to review of the outcome. You need to make sure that you have the reporting date. Test effectiveness of the operating effectiveness, okay, whether it is particularly operating or not, how effective it is. Next, you have specialist skills and what is the knowledge required. These are according to ISA 540. This requires the auditor to do the following things. Next, you have developing accounting estimates. Okay, now when you are developing accounting estimates, you need to identify situations for which accounting estimates are required. Now, for everything, accounting estimates are not required. So, you need to identify in which situation accounting estimates are required. Next, you have to identify the relevant factors that may affect the accounting estimates. What are the factors, whether it is internal factor or external factors? What are these factors that are affecting the accounting estimates? Next, accumulating relevant, sufficient and reliable data on which the base the estimate. Now you should see on which data or whether the data is actually relevant or not to completely base your estimate. Okay, next you have developing assumptions that represent management's judgment of the most likely circumstances and event with respect to relevant factors. Okay, what are the factors and what is the judgment you can actually come up with, and what are the circumstances in respect to these factors. Next, you have determining the estimated amount based on the assumptions. How you are determining the estimated amount based on whatever assumptions you are making. Next, determining that the accounting estimate is presented in conformity with the applicable accounting. See, it is very important. You will come up with estimations and everything, but you need to comply with all the rules and regulations as per the accounting principles that are being disclosed. Now, what is the problem with these estimates? Okay, the problem is there will be no physical evidence which will be there. Now, these estimates will be subjective and it will also lead to management bias. Okay, it will not be fair, it will not be transparent, there will be material misappropriation. Okay, all of this will be there. Management will be will not be fair, it will not conduct fair practices. Okay, there will be inaccuracy and manipulation of accounts. These are the problems with the estimates. These are the points you can actually remember for all of this. Instead of, see, it's always better to refer your PPT for this chapter because I've simplified it very easily so that you can remember your points. Next, you have evaluating accounting estimates. Now, in your evaluating accounting estimates, it could be material to the financial statements that have been developed. Okay, material to financial statements that were actually developed. Here, it is reasonable in circumstances and also are presented in conformity with applicable accounting principles. Okay, when you are evaluating, you should be able to relate, okay, the material to the financial statements, and also it should have happened in the reasonable circumstances. And also you are collecting the evidence, evaluating the accounting estimates as per the rules and regulations provided by the accounting standards. Next, you have control environment for smaller entities. Control environment for smaller entities. What is this control environment for smaller entities? It is communication and enforcement of integrity and ethical value. Now you need to communicate and enforce. Okay, that is, you need to integrate the ethical value. Next, commitment to competence. Yeah, there will be even for small scale industries, you will have a lot of competition because there are various other small scale industries. Next, you have participation by those charged with governance. Okay. Next, you have management's philosophy and operating styles. What is management's philosophy they are following and what is the operating style, whether it is a democratic organization, autocratic, authoritative, whatever it is based on that. Next, you have organizational structure, whether it is a tall organization structure having a top, middle, lower level hierarchy, or it is a flat level organization structure where there is no hierarchy. Next, assignment of accountability and responsibility. How are you assigning accountability and responsibility? Basically, you can have various departments like your finance department, HR department. How are you dividing your departments and how are you holding them accountable and responsible for things? Next, you have audit sampling. Now, what is this audit sampling? Is basically audit sampling can actually be defined as a process of applying auditing procedure. Okay, it is a process of how you are going to apply the auditing procedure to under 100% of different items. Okay, to 100%, there'll be 100 different items in an organization. How you are applying these audit procedures to these different items in organization, account balance in a way that every single unit might have equal probability of being selected. Okay, I think you've studied probability and everything. Even if you've not studied it, let me just tell you, suppose you have 3 projects. Okay, you have A, B, C. Now A, B, C will be such kind of projects wherein you do not know which project will get selected. So you need to suppose you have a pencil. Okay, you need to distribute this pencil in these 3 projects so effectively that there is a plausible chance of all of these projects to be get selected. Okay, so that is what it is telling. So you need to equally probability of being, there should be equal probability of each project or each item in the organization to be selected. Okay, next you have objectives and purpose. Objectives or purpose of audit sampling. What are the objectives and purposes of audit sampling? To gather audit evidence in order to conclude audit opinion. Okay, to reduce the work, to reach its conclusion, to detect any errors, to prove auditors have done their job as per the required auditing standards, and use a tool for investigation. Next, you have what are the techniques which are actually used for the audit sampling. Okay, in this you have haphazard sampling, you have stratified sampling. Haphazard sampling here is basically a technique which is adopted by the auditor. Okay, what here sample does not follow a structured technique. It is not in a structured way. Okay, it is not appropriate during the use of statistical sampling. This haphazard sampling is not appropriate when you are using statistical sampling. Okay, here it is always important for the auditor to always ascertain that haphazard sampling is not doctored in a way that by designs avoid sampling items, for instance, are difficult to locate. Okay, so basically it should not be done in a way that wherein you find it difficult to locate the items. All items in population should get a chance of being selected. We saw it in the audit sampling. What is it? You need to give equal chances of everything getting selected. Okay. Next, you have stratified sampling. What is the stratified sampling? Here it is into different strata. Strata is basically how you are stratifying your things. Okay, how you are splitting it. Okay, how you are splitting it into different sections. For example, if you have a payroll sample, the auditor might divide the sample in full-time males, full-time females. Okay, suppose now you're giving salary to someone. Okay, now while giving salary, there will be part-time workers also and full-time workers also, and there will be males also and females also. Now, how are you dividing it? Based on your population. Strata is nothing but stratified sampling is based completely on your population. Okay. Next, you have systematic sampling. Systematic sampling is basically referred to as interval sampling. Here it is a technique wherein you have sampling units of population and you are taking the aggregate of the sample size. Okay, of the entire population, you are taking the aggregate of the sample size to provide sampling interval. Okay, for example, let me just give you a very simple example. In a sales invoice, okay, in a sales invoice, for example, where sampling interval is 25, the auditor will determine an initial point for sampling and subsequently sample every 25th sales invoice. Correct? Suppose if it is 25, every 25th will be the subsequent sample for the sales invoice. Okay, 25th will be the sales thing. Next, you have block sampling. Block sampling, what is this block sampling? It is basically a technique wherein the auditor is applying this particular technique to measure such items which occur in the same block of sequence or time. Okay, which is occurring, suppose there are 1 or 2 or 3 items which are occurring, so which are occurring in the same block or sequence at a particular period of time. Okay. Next, you have judgment. What is this judgment about? It is basically the technique which is followed by the auditor to use judgment in making selection of samples. Okay, selections of sample, for example, are value of items. What is the value of items? Relative risk involved. Okay, representativeness of the sample. All of this will be taken into consideration. Next, you have types of audit sampling. Okay, in your audit sampling, you have statistic audit sampling and you have non-statistic audit sampling. In your statistic audit sampling, it is basically an approach wherein which is used by the auditor, wherein random sampling is used. Okay, you're just doing it randomly to select the items of the total population, which uses probabilities techniques to measure the result of testing. Okay, you're doing it to measure the results of testing and to bring about conclusions. Here you are using statistical sampling, which is very important to help the manager, to help the auditor when he's able to manage and control the risk. Okay, this statistical sampling is completely based on population in order to reduce the risk. Here it is completely done by the auditor. It is one of the methods which are used. Now statistical sampling is basically, here you need to remember two important things. That is, here it is completely selected on a random basis. Okay, it is randomly selected. Okay, there is no such thing that you need to think about before selecting a set of population or anything as such. It is just selected randomly, and also conclusions are based on the random selection. Okay, based on how you are selecting it randomly and how you are testing it, based on that conclusions are made. Now next you have non-statistic audit sampling. So here it is completely different from the statistic sampling. Okay. So why is it non-statistic? Is basically, here you need to identify, here two important things are there. That is, you need to identify whether sampling is systematic or not. In non-statistic, you need to identify whether sampling is systematic or not. The first is basically how you are going to select an items. Here, see, when you are making a comparison in statistic, you are taking data which is not really which is completely random, right? But here you cannot do that. Okay, and here you are also arriving at conclusions, but here you are not selecting the data randomly and you are not simply arriving at conclusions. Okay, the auditor might not use audit sampling items for testing. Okay, here they might use sampling items which are based on what is the, okay, here wait, okay, here basically they will use what is the value of items. Okay, then select items higher than the certain amount of value, items that contain information, data, and want to access about. Now if you look into page 136 to 137, you have the complete explanation of audit sampling. That is, what is statistic audit sampling and what is non-statistic audit sampling. Okay, so you can actually look into the differences. Based on this, you will be able to understand the topic even more effectively. Next, you have audit of specific terms. Okay, you are auditing specific terms. Okay, I think as being account students, you will be knowing what receivables are and everything as such. So you are auditing the specific terms. Okay, first one you have receivables. Receivables is nothing but if your particular company is subject to annual audit. Okay, if your company is carrying out auditing on an annual basis, the auditors will review its account receivables in some detail, right? The account receivable is frequently the largest asset that the company has. Correct? Receivables are going to be the largest asset a particular company has. So auditors tend to spend considerable amount on gaining assurance that the amount which is stated on this particular asset is reasonable. Next, you have trace receivable report to ledger. The auditors will ask for period end accounts here. Okay, account receivable aging reports, from which they trace a grand total and the amount in the accounts receivable in the general ledger. Next, you have calculate the receivable report total. Now you need to make sure that you are adding up all the invoices on the accounts receivable aging report to verify that the total they traced to the general ledger is correct or not. Okay, you need to identify and see whether whatever you've calculated is correct or not. Next, you have investigate reconciling items. It is basically your journal entries in the account receivable account in the general ledger, how you are taking into your journal entries in the accounts receivable in a particular journal ledger. And auditors will basically ask you for a justification in case if there are larger amounts. Here journal entry should be completely documented. Okay. Okay, next you have okay, now next you have test invoices listed. Okay, test invoices which are listed in the receivable report. Your auditors will select some invoices from the accounts receivable aging report. Okay, aging report is nothing but it has come from a very long period of time. Okay, they will not just take 1 year's data, they will take the complete company's data. Based on that, they will compare them to support documents to see if they were actually billed in correct amounts or not. Okay, whether who are the correct customers, what are the correct dates, everything will be taken into consideration. The complete report will be taken into consideration. Next, you will match invoices to the shipping log. Okay, next you will confirm orders accounts receivable. You need to confirm whether all the customers are there, whether they have asked to report directly, what are the paid amounts, what are the unpaid amounts. Next, you should also review your cash receipts, then assess the allowance for doubtful accounts. Okay, whatever the doubtful accounts are, Based on this, you need to assess allowance for them and assess bad debts write off. You need to, in case if there are any bad debts which are written off, you need to assess all of it. Then next, assess, then review credit memos. Okay, you need to review credit memos to see if they are issued in a proper audit period, if it is actually okay, if it is actually verified, and what are the circumstances which have actually occurred during this particular thing for which review credit memos are there. Then review a receiving log. Okay, you need to review the receiving log, also related party receivables. Then you have a trend analysis. Trend analysis is nothing but the auditors may review a trend line of sales. Okay, trend analysis is always related to a particular sales and accounts receivable. How you are comparing your trend analysis of sales and account receivable, and how you're comparing the two over a time. It is basically to see if there is any unusual trend, okay, in terms of your current assets. Now next one, you have inventory audit procedures. In inventory audit procedures, you have a cutoff analysis. What is cutoff analysis? As we studied in the earlier topic, okay, cutoff analysis, basically you are examining the procedure for halting any further reviewing into warehouse, okay, shipments from its time and physical inventory count, okay. Based on this, how you are cutting off the analysis. That typically test the last few receiving and shipment transaction prior to the physical count, okay. Then observe the physical inventory count. Okay, you're observing the physical inventory count. Girls, for all of this you need to refer your textbook, because the information that I'm providing is really fast, because I need to complete this entire topic in a PowerPoint presentation and would not be doing justice to this topic. So it's better when you're listening to the explanation, you have your textbook with you so that you understand the topic even more effectively. Okay. So now you have observed physical inventory count. You need to observe the physical inventory count. You need to, which is used to count the inventory. Okay, if the company has multiple inventory storage locations, so you need to observe the physical inventory count. Next, you have reconcile the inventory count to the general ledger. You will trace here you will trace the valuation compiled from the physical inventory count to the company's general ledger. Whatever inventory is being counted physically, you will compile it in the general ledger. Next, you will have the test high value items. You will be testing the usually high value items which are not usually normal. Okay, you will have high value items, but not all items are highly valued. Next, you have test error prone items. In your test and error prone items, if the auditors have noticed an error trend in prior years for specific inventory items, okay, if there is any trend or error which is being noticed in terms of inventory in the previous years, it is most likely to test these particular items again. You are testing these particular items again, okay. Next, you have test inventory transit. In your test inventory transit, again, if there is a risk, okay, if there is a risk, okay, if there is a risk that you have inventory in transit from one storage location to the different one, in case if there was a risk which is involved in the previous thing. So similarly, you have a test of item cost. Okay, test of item cost is basically how you've known where the purchase cost in your accounting records have come from. Then test for lower of cost of market is basically auditors must follow the lower of cost market rule by comparing a selection of market prices to record a particular cost. Then finished goods cost analysis, how you are taking into consideration your finished goods cost analysis based on your bills of materials, etc. Then you have direct labor cost analysis, like how is your labor charged during your times of productions and your time cards, labor routine, okay. And next, you have overhead analysis, inventory ownership, inventory layers, and payables and accruals, okay. So moving on to your next topic, you have payables and accruals. In your payables and accruals, you have trade accounts payable. Okay, trade accounts payable is nothing but in your payables and accruals, I think you all know what payables are and what accruals are. So okay, so basically payable and accrued expenses accounts payable, okay, for the purchase of goods and services created with the passage of the title to goods or receipt from the benefit from the services. Here they are receiving benefits from the particular services, okay. For example, in your payables and accruals, you have trade accounts payable. Example, you have FOB destination versus FOB shipping point. And also what you have is accounts payable normally reflect obligations for which credit invoices are received and which constitute liabilities at the balance sheet date. Okay, what are the payables and what are the accruals that are contributing towards the balance sheet date. Next, you have accrued liabilities for a typical small business. Now, what are the accrued liabilities for a typical small business? Is basically you have your salaries, you have commissions, you have professional fees, you have property tax, okay, you have sales tax and interest which is associated with your long-term debt. Next, you have auditing and cash balances. In your auditing and cash balances is basically your analytical procedures. What are the analytical procedures? It is basically your auditing cash, bank balance, involves several audit procedures in a broad sense. Okay. For this, you have first one, that is calling confirmation. You need to confirm. Okay. When you're carrying out audit, you need to confirm. You need to verify your cash and bank balances. Okay. You need to auditor himself needs to go to the bank and see whether all of these transactions have actually occurred by the company, okay, and he should get a confirmation letter. Next, he needs to review the bank reconciliation. Okay, once he gets the confirmation, he needs to review to see, he needs to match it with the records of the company and see whether everything is correct or not. Then he needs to physically verify it by himself. Next, cash valuation. He needs to value it. Okay, in case if there are any cash and bank balances which are maintained other than any reporting currency, he needs to do the cash valuation in terms of the currency which is being involved. Next, you have cutoff testing. Cutoff testing is basically, it is a substantive procedure, as I told you, and it is a test of control. Here, basically, auditor will be conducting necessary test in order to see whether it is accurate or not. And in this, you have the next thing, that is fixed assets. Okay, in your fixed asset, it is basically, as we all know what fixed assets are, it is the assets of the organization, which basically in this you have account balance accuracy. Okay, how accurate the account balance is, and the fixed assets in the financial statement, how they are adding value in the assets additions and deletions to a given point of time. Next, you have account transaction validation. Okay, what is the account transaction validation which is being involved in this particular thing? Whether your fixed assets are helping you in auditing, okay, whether they are ensuring that the assets listed in financial statements are valid transaction, and whether they have been received that are actually in existence in the service, whether these fixed assets are actually been existing in the organization or not. Next, you are going to value your particular assets. Okay, we've already come across in the previous topics what is asset valuation. Next, you are going to classify your assets in different subheadings, and also you are going to conduct your other auditing test. Okay, now moving on to your next topic, you have intangible assets. Your intangible assets are basically the accuracy of the calculation, as intangible assets are, you do not usually generally have an explanation for the intangible assets. You need to just write the meaning of what intangible asset is. And for this, you have various examples like useful life, you have depreciation, and you have land tax. Next, you have duty audit procedures. Okay, the all of these are being please do refer from page 143 to 144 in your particular textbook, in which again audit procedure is repeated. We've already completed in the previous slides what exactly audit procedure is, but here it is audit procedure according to your intangible assets. It's all in the same. In case if you have any doubts, you can get back, because it's all about a single topic. Next, you have duties of the auditor while verifying provisions. Okay, now when you're verifying provisions, here the auditor needs to verify that provisions are made with regard to liabilities and contingencies. Whenever the provisions are given, it should be made only in regard to liabilities and contingencies. Here he needs to make sure that the amount provided is adequate. Okay, it should not be inadequate, it should be adequate. And he should also examine the minutes of the meeting. He should record the minutes of the meeting and also the articles of association. Then he should ensure all the provisions that are made by debiting the profit and loss account. Okay, he should ensure that all the provisions are given in the financial statements. Next, you have ensure amount paid is adequate. Okay, he should make sure that whatever amount is there, it is paid adequately, and whatever the provisions are utilized only for the purpose which are created, and he should give necessary advice to the management. Next, you have share capital. Okay, in your share capital, here the role of an auditor and share capital is basically he needs to issue fresh share. Okay, as per the conditions which are laid in MOA, AO and prospectus. Application money received is deposited appropriately. Whatever money is received for the application of share, here the money has to be deposited. Brokerage and underwriting, then securities and security and exchange. Okay, as per Security Exchange Board of India. Then next one you have is sweat equity. Okay, all of this has to be taken into consideration in terms of share capital. Now next topic you have computer assisted audit techniques. Okay, for your computer assisted audit techniques, it is basically here these are the audit tools and techniques. Okay, here the computer assisted audit techniques are basically the practice of using computers. Okay, they are using computers to automate the audit procedure. It is basically categorized into two broad categories, that is audit software wherein first audit software, and the second category, just a minute. Okay, first one is your audit software. In your audit software, it is basically here you are extracting samples according to the specified criteria. It could either be in your when you're extracting samples, it could be random, or it could be over a certain amount, or below a certain amount, or based on certain dates you are extracting samples. Okay, next it is basically you are also extracting extracting samples based on certain dates. Next, you are calculating ratios. You are taking into consideration arithmetical accuracy, whatever the reports are, and your test data. Next, you have advantages of CADS. That is, advantage is basically here you have independent access to the data which is actually stored in your computer system, and it is you can test the reliability, how reliable the data is, which is increasing when you're testing the reliability, is increasing the accuracy of audit test, and you're performing audit test more effectively. Okay, next you have disadvantages. Disadvantage is basically how CADS can basically here it is very expensive and time consuming, because it is completely giving you independent independent viewing of the thing, right? So you need to maintain the data and you need to store the data, so it will become time consuming and expensive. Here you need to get client permission. Okay, and if suppose someone else wants to operate it, you need to take the permission of the client. It is very potentially incapable, incompatible or incapable, and data can be corrupted, and it is not sufficient. Okay, you do not have sufficient information technology skills. No, not everyone has IT skills, right? It is only the experts who have, so it is a disadvantage. Next, you have audit techniques for not-for-profit organization. Not-for-profit is basically here what are the techniques is basically to evaluate risk. Okay, you're evaluating risk. Okay, then you have test controls, performing testing, report results. You have compliance with grant agreements, potentially more desirable for making those financial contribution, and promote which is a healthy system of internal control and protecting against fraud. So thank you. We're done with your fourth chapter, that is audit evidence. Any doubts, please do get back to me. Thank you, girls.